I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Yes or no? Did you ever take banned substances to enhance your cycling performance?
Yes.
I had no prior knowledge of the planned assault on Nancy Kerrigan.
I am deeply sorry for my irresponsible and selfish behavior I engaged in.
What's up, everybody? Oops, the podcast. Fucking
Nice.
Let's do it again. What's up, guys? It's Oops, the podcast. We're here as always. I'm Giulio. We're here with Francis Ellis.
Hey, I'm here too.
How you doing?
Hey, yeah.
I like your lime green shorts.
My bird dogs.
Yeah, your BDs.
One of the earliest sponsors of the podcast.
Yeah, dude, your Puxatawny feeling it, dude. You're predicting that spring's gonna come soon.
When is Groundhog Day?
It may have already happened.
Did
Chris,
it?
Can we look? By the way, is the thing with the groundhog seeing his shadow, is that just something that is exclusively talked about in elementary school?
Yes.
Because the second I graduated from 6th grade, I never heard about Puxatawny Phil again.
That is correct.
Chris, could you maybe see if he saw his shadow this year? This happens in Pennsylvania.
You don't hear about it. Yeah. You don't hear about now. Admittedly, it was the whole concept of Groundhog Day was immortalized by the movie,
Right.
which is one of the best movies I've ever seen.
It was very good.
It's one of the most rewatchable movies, right? And the irony there being
Which is ironic, yes.
Yeah.
What Chris, he saw his... So that's bad that he saw his shadow. That means there's more winter, I believe.
It means he got scared and went back in.
Which means there's more winter coming.
Yeah, but it's all horse shit. Dude,
That is crazy. Targeted news for children, like before targeted news was a thing.
What do you mean?
Like this is news. This is newsworthy shit. This was on the news. It's on like the local news and stuff. And I only heard about it as a child,
Right.
before targeted news was a thing.
Well, I think it speaks to how much elementary school teachers struggle to come up with material to present to their students each day.
Right. That's very valuable.
You can only teach so many, you can only read The Giving Tree so many times in a year. You can only
Shel
hand out
Silverstein.
so many math, Boy, let me ask you something. When you were in 1st and 2nd grade, right? So the way our school worked was the 1st and the 2nd graders were mixed in a class together.
Mm.
And then there was the sort of 3, 4, 5 was all in something together.
Sounds like a budget cut situation.
Well, it was a private school situation.
So maybe not.
I don't really know what that
opposite.
meant. Yeah.
But
So what would happen was you would have, this is my question. Were there ever kids, and you might have been included in this, who were learning or developing at a different rate, and then you'd look around and you would be doing an accelerated worksheet while someone to your left was doing the moron worksheet?
So yeah, but those kids would like leave the class during the day. And also I didn't realize what the fuck was going on. Like I didn't even think about it until just now. But yeah, they were the slow kids who would do their own like curriculum or whatever.
Yeah.
And then as far as I know, everyone else was doing the same shit. But it sounds
I
like
knew.
yours is a little more specific.
I knew exactly where everyone stood, and I made fun of them for it.
You were a bully?
No, I wasn't a bully. I got bullied. There was a kid ahead of me named Caleb Slabbert. That was his real name. And Caleb, the year before I got to the school, had peed on his hands and then went around trying to touch people. And it was thought that anybody he touched was infected. And on the first day of my new school, he high-fived me. And from that day forward, I was infected.
You were the pee-pee boy?
And so everyone bullied me as being friends with Caleb, as being part of the infected clan. And ironically, I did like Caleb, but it was tough to shake the stench of his urine off my reputation.
Yeah.
And all the cool kids, TC Haffenreffer, Max Monks, they would avoid me at playground, even though I was bigger and stronger than everyone.
TC Haffenreffer's a real
Yeah,
person?
he was a bully. Yeah.
Sounds like a fuck Jesus.
Now he hunts,
I'm sure. That makes sense.
kills birds and stuff.
Makes sense.
I'm using real names here, not really trying to protect anyone. That's okay.
Dude, I got bullied the other day.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, on the subway. A group of teenagers. And these were like big teenagers.
Yeah, they're getting big these days.
Like these guys must have been 17, 18.
Yeah. Sure.
Judging by their behavior, it didn't seem like they were going to be doing much after high school.
Unsavory characters, bad apples.
Unsavory characters. However, they were throwing Hershey Kisses at my head on the subway. And there were 10 of them, dude. And this is on the L train between, right before the last stop at 8th Avenue. So I get hit with one in the head. I hear them all laughing. I'm like, all right, I'm going to ignore that because it's just not worth it.
Were you sitting or standing?
Sitting.
So they're hitting the front of your head.
The side of my head as I was looking down at the ground with Hershey Kisses. Hard, too.
That hurts.
Yeah, it hurt. It was annoying. So the first time they do it, I do nothing. They then do it again. I then stare at them very unhappily and say nothing. Great. They do it a third time. I then stand up with my cell phone and pretend to start filming all of them.
Oh, wow.
Because I was just like, what else am I going to do? I'm not going to fight anybody. Nonetheless, 10 wild teens who
Nothing you
seem
can
very
do.
agile and athletic.
Yeah.
And then they surround me. And I was like, oh boy, this was not worth it. And they're like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? And I was like, I'm not doing, I didn't say shit. I was like, oh, you guys think you're cool throwing candy at people?
Did you say that?
Yes, I said that. And they're like, yo, you better put your fucking phone away. We're going to fucking take it from you. And then I couldn't help but think about Cypher Sound's story about getting his fucking face.
Yeah.
The guy tried to cut his face and got his finger, and Doug Smith. And I was like, oh boy, this is my moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then, right before the last stop on the train, there's always a delay before the doors open. So I'm just standing there sort of like with my head down, like not saying anything. And then the train doors open and they get off. They were very loud and rambunctious. So fortunately I could hear which way they were exiting. So I tried to exit it an opposite way. And I lived to tell the tale.
Oh, you didn't throw one parting shot at them just as the doors were closing?
No, because everyone got off. It's the last stop.
Huh.
But dude, yeah, it was bad. And, it sucks because there's nothing you can do in that situation. And shit like that happens to me quarterly, I would say. Like one time a guy just smashed my phone out of my hand. And as I'm looking up to be like, what the fuck? I just realized he's 3 times my size.
Yeah.
And
Good
I said,
for Happy Gilmore, my God.
Literally exactly that moment.
Yeah.
And then he got off the train and I looked around at everybody like, huh, can you believe that guy? And everyone just looked at me like, you're a pussy, dude. Like,
really?
Nobody no one was like, haha, yeah, it sucks.
No one
Everyone
came
was
to your
just like,
aid?
nice, man. It was beat.
Dude, I have been in that situation before.
Sucks.
I've been in that situation with a couple different iterations. And what are you going to do, right? You can't, is it really worth trying to teach these kids a lesson? Are you going to be the guy that sends them on, writes their course in life where they'll say, oh, I was headed for troubled times until that random handsome Italian guy on the subway told me that throwing Hershey Kisses at random strangers' heads is no way to go through life. And from that day forward, I started volunteering and now I'm a senator.
Right.
Nobody, that's not how that story goes.
Right.
I had a situation where one time I was on let's call it a half empty subway car. And I was reading a graphic novel. It was one of those graphic novels that was about a kid that grew up in the Middle East. There have been a couple of these that have won Pulitzers.
Persepolis is one that we talked
Persepolis.
about.
So it was the next one after Persepolis, I
Gotcha.
think. And it was the one, but it was written by the same guy.
Gotcha.
And it's very kind of thought provoking, and it's a different way to present that material. But I'm reading this very cool cultural graphic novel, and there was a very haughty gay guy sitting across on the opposite bench in between 2 women, right, who were his friends. And I'm reading this, and he starts talking about me. And there aren't that many people on the subway, right? There's nobody standing in between us. And he's saying things like, look at this guy. Like, look at this guy. And I looked up and I'm like, are they fucking talking about me? And then he goes, ugh, and he's reading a fucking comic book. And I wanted to be like, it's not a comic book. It's a graphic novel. And it's a graphic novel about the Middle East and cultural problems that arise for women in that region. And you're just uneducated. But I realized that to say all of that in that moment would not have won me the battle, right?
Yeah.
So I started just scoffing, like that's all I could do, you know. And that's not the winning blow.
Right. Yeah.
What do you do in that situation?
You get up and fucking beat his ass, but that's not.
Then it's a hate crime.
That's exactly, yeah. There's nothing you can really do.
Because you find out, you know, not only is he gay, but he's transitioning, and you know, he's grew up in a broken home, and all of a sudden I'm the poster child for abuse.
Right. Yeah, that's not good. Also, like, if you're too affected by the situation, like if that happens to me and these 10 kids, let me reiterate, gang up on me and, you know, threaten me and stuff, and that inspires me to like train, like they win also. You know what I mean? By thinking about it, they're winning.
Yes. And you know, is there really a Batman martial arts class? Because that's what you would need to take.
Right. Like nobody can take on 10.
Learn to fight like Batman, where you drop into the middle of a circle of goons and can wheel your cape around and hit them in a way where they just start fighting each other because they can't even see you.
Right.
That's not available in Manhattan. You'd need to go to the League of Shadows. You need to climb the mountain with the flower, all that. It would be years of your life.
Yeah, it's just not worth it.
I have another story. I was on the subway. The subway is the place where a lot of this stuff happens. And I witnessed as 2 kids, and I would say they were probably more like 14 or 15, they were hitting the emergency call button that's on the platform.
Oh yeah.
As they were theoretically waiting for their train, and one of them said into it, "Come quick, you know, someone just got pushed onto the tracks. There's a bad guy, yada yada."
It wasn't true.
And he's making up this whole story, right? And his friend is like giggling into his hands right next to him. And then there are like 3 or 4 of them nearby that are all kind of doing random shit. And he's calling this in, right? Bring police down, bring police. And they get off the phone call. The kid who had made the call, the train comes into the station, right? And the kid is the middle of the platform. So the train has a lot longer to go, but it's slowing down. The kid starts running alongside the train, grabs the side of the door, and then rides the outside of the train all the way to the end of it stopping. So he's just a complete lunatic. And I then turned to the kid who had been laughing, and I said, "Why'd you call that in? What was that?" And he goes, "Oh, we're just playing pranks. We're playing pranks." And I said, "Huh, okay." And then he kind of looked at me as if he knew that they'd made a mistake. I then pressed the call button to call the people. So they picked up, and I said, "Listen, those were some kids. They were playing a prank. You don't need to send police down here. Don't waste your time." The guy was like, "Okay, thanks very much." And they hung up. 2 days later, I saw these kids again.
No way.
And they were once again down in the subway, and they were like just making a fucking scene. They ran up. I got off the subway. They ran up. There was a fruit cart, a guy selling fruit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the kids took an apple, bit into it, and the guy who owned the fruit cart was like, "Hey, you got to pay for that." And he goes, "Fuck you."
Oh my God.
And then he took the half-bitten apple and threw it as hard as he could at a cab driving up 8th Avenue.
Oh my God.
And it smashed into the door. The cab driver screeched to a halt, and then the kids ran off giggling.
Oh my God.
And I wanted to follow them, and I wanted to kill them all. I wanted to fucking kill these kids because they were a plague. These are just anarchists.
The Corona children.
They are fucking lawless anarchist children.
I hate that.
I hate it. What can you do? You can't beat a kid.
You should.
You should be able to.
Dude, there should be a movie where the kids are like where an adult beats the shit out of like meddling kids.
Oh,
It would be
that's a
so
great
satisfying.
idea. Like a vigilante
For
who
kids.
just goes around beating up kids.
Murdering kids and burying them alive. Kids who, fuck, the kid took a bite of the apple and this poor, how the fuck do the fruit stand guys even make money, dude? You're selling
They're
fruit
selling
for
that
8
shit
cents?
For 10 cents for dimes.
This kid is biting into it and telling you to go fuck yourself. That kid deserves to burn in hell, dude.
Dude, I had this lump of anger in my throat, and
Oh
I
my God.
followed them across the street, and then they waited at the streetlight, and I'm among them. And the kid who'd thrown the apple, he had seen me on the subway. He had seen me come up the subway. He had seen me see him do the whole apple trick and then follow them across the street. I'm not jogging, but they're jogging and then stopping. So I'm among them now. And I'm bigger than all of them, but there's 6 of them, right? But this kid was the ringleader. He was clearly the Johnny Knoxville of their group.
Right.
The guy who was tasked with performing the most outrageous stunts for the amusement of the others. And I looked at him in a way where I wanted so badly to just say, like, your life is unraveling and you need to get a grip. I wanted to say, you have no idea the path that you're setting yourself on, like some weird Obi-Wan Kenobi
Right.
out of nowhere.
Right.
And he looked at me and he goes, "What's up, man?" But almost in a respectful way.
Right.
Because he'd been a dick to everybody else in his path, and he saw me, and I wondered if in that moment he knew that he should stop.
Right.
But I don't think so. I think the moment he was out of my sight, he
Continued.
went off and keyed a car and then smashed a window. And
Right. I hope he's in jail choking on someone's cock right now, dude.
oh, that's nice. That is a good thought. Oh, that does help. Yeah.
Right.
Just like, and not just one,
Yeah.
like they're lining up.
I hope he's the cutest guy in jail, dude.
I hope he's in a bunk in juvenile hall being held down like that scene in Full Metal Jacket where they load the pillowcases with soap bars and take their turns just beating the shit out of him. But the problem is that reinforces his behavior.
I understand that argument, but then, like, how else do you deal with him? Make his father come back into his life?
I don't know.
Like, how do you deal with that situation? I understand what you're saying, but, like, it's just so infuriating. I wish nothing for the worst. Nothing but the worst for the kids who are throwing chocolate at my face.
Agreed.
I hope they have terrible lives.
I agree.
My
And there's
girlfriend
nothing
told me
you
that
can
I'm an
say.
animal. She's like, you know what? You need to. I was like, no. What? You need to defend me. I was just bullied.
I agree. Giulio, the only solace I can take from that is in thinking that the universe has a way of correcting itself, right? So even if those kids don't end up in a correctional facility, right? They're going to end up on drugs or
Well, but why?
and heroin. It would
Why
be
heroin though? Like that seems like such a
because
like-
heroin's cheap.
yeah, but it's also like
They're gonna
low.
get
It's low
bored.
energy.
They're gonna get bored.
You think heroin?
Dude, I'm reading this book. I'm still reading it. It's so dense. Holy shit. About the opioid epidemic, and everybody is on heroin. So many people in America are on heroin. So many more. We just don't see it
It's crazy.
because we go to Chelsea Market to get.
Dude, I know one
rice
guy.
bowls.
That fair enough, but I mean, dude, there's like a methadone clinic around here, I believe.
Yeah, there are multiple.
I know one guy who shot heroin once and never did it again. That's the only time I've ever heard of that.
Who?
This kid I'm friends with.
What is he? What is he? What's his story?
He comes from a religious family.
Wow.
I think it took him a little bit to adjust to like not being exactly like them. So he was a little behind in that regard. But I think maybe he was just hanging out with some bad kids or something when he lived in North Carolina, and he shot heroin once.
Dude,
And now he has like a good job, a completely normal life, doesn't do drugs. Like he's a chill kid. Like he parties a little, but he's not like doing heroin when he drinks. He's not sober. It's the only time I've ever heard a story like that.
I've never heard that.
Everyone else, it ruins their life forever.
Yeah, because heroin comes in the white powder form.
I thought it was brown.
Well, that's black tar heroin,
And
which
that's worse?
overtook once the Mexican drug dealers started bringing it up from
Oh, is it cheaper?
much cheaper, much more potent.
Ooh.
Heroin for many years was it was a drug that was in the jazz
Jazz
scene.
musicians, yeah.
It was used by lower class people. It was sort of at the fringes of society, and it was always the white powder that was coming from Afghanistan, Asia, you know, and it was very stepped on, you know, and the people, then in recent years, like the 90s,
Right.
was when the black tar heroin started coming up from Mexico.
To like the suburbs.
And it's very easy to process, and nobody was cutting it. You couldn't cut it. And they would just ball it up in these little sticky balls and put them in balloons. And then drug dealers would, in so many cities across America, what they did, just like weed delivery people, they would have a beeper, and these guys would drive to where you were, and they would have these balloons in their mouth.
All right,
like
Maria
3 or
Full of Grace
4
situation.
Yeah. And that way, if a policeman pulled them over, they could just swallow them and not find them. But you'd say, I want, 2 doses. They would spit out 2 balloons, hand them to you. You hand them $20 or whatever. And the price kept driving down because more and more competition, more cells would pop up, and heroin was very cheap. But the problem was this black tar heroin, unlike the white heroin, was so potent that it would just make you way, way, way more high, which meant that your crash and your need to re-up was that much harder to overcome. And finally, because it was coming from the bulb of the poppy, it had all these impurities in it, which would lead to your arteries getting clogged or your muscle atrophy, and of course, heart attacks and overdoses. And
you just need it so bad you're stealing from your fucking grandma and shit.
Correct.
It's really crazy, bro.
Tearing families apart. So
the dog food, as they call it.
I don't know anybody that has shot heroin, but God.
I know a few people, and I don't know anybody who's like made a full recovery. Nobody.
Yeah.
As far as I know. And every time they say they've recovered, you don't really know.
Right.
And sometimes they come back around, you see their arms are all fucked up.
Yeah,
and you're
tracked
like, oh,
out.
God.
Here's a question I have for you. I want to get a little existential with you.
Okay.
Do you know anybody? Actually, let me walk this back a second. The other day, my girlfriend asked me if I knew if anyone in my life had died, and close. She said, "Has anyone you were really close to died?" And
from heroin or in general?
Just in general, in my life, and excluding like let's say grandparents.
Okay.
Because my girlfriend's dad passed away a year and a half ago, and that's like a big deal.
For sure.
And the closest I had was that there was this kid that I looked up to when I was growing up who was like 5 years older than me. He was always my coach at like summer soccer camps at school. And then he was a stud, super handsome, great athlete, went to UVA. Freshman year at UVA, he killed himself, shot himself with a shotgun.
Jesus.
And it was insane. It was the first time I'd ever heard of anyone who was like depressed, any of that stuff. All that came out afterwards. But I remember going to the funeral. I remember going to the like gathering in the next day and just watching everyone who was shattered by this.
Right.
And it was like very, so that was like the closest thing. My girlfriend asked me this question almost in a challenging way, almost in a judgmental way, because I answered with that answer. And then she was like, okay, so nobody that you're really that close to, and I wanted to ask you if anyone really close to you had died. And then I also want to talk about the currency or the status that comes with knowing someone closely who has died. So first, tell me that.
Okay, well, So I'm wondering if my examples are close enough. I mean, I've had a couple close friends, and in very tragic circumstances, a gym teacher with a similar story like the one you just told, and then just like an aunt who I was very, very close with, and a cousin who I was sort of close with, but the aunt is the closest family member that I've lost so far. And I think about it still, you know what I mean? It's and it makes me upset. It's not one of those things that I've like fully gone over. And I don't know if you ever fully get over.
Right.
And I feel like that is how I know that one it felt different maybe. So I don't know if that answers the question.
No, I think that, you know, there's no like, okay, you're part of the club.
Right. But,
You've shown your
but what's the
stripes.
rest of the question?
All right. So here's where I'm going with this. And people aren't going to like this. Have you ever noticed that when someone dies who is popular, there is sometimes a rush to social media to write an in memoriam post that sometimes feels more like the person who's posting it
Humble
wants
bragging.
everyone to know that they knew that person,
100%.
as opposed to an actual demonstration of how much you are grieving.
Right. And what I think of, and I think where I differ on my stance with that is I feel like it is both. I don't think it's instead of, I feel like they are commemorating the person while also being like, look at this picture of us.
Right.
But it's like, it's hard to really say in that situation that that's fully inappropriate though.
I'm not.
Right.
But I do think that there are people who barely knew the person who died, who will make more of the relationship they had with that person after they died.
It's, unfortunately, we have been losing a lot of people in comedy.
Right.
And it's a very good example of that.
Right.
When, a very popular, and it's fucking so sad when somebody has a career taken away from them. It's been happening a lot in hip hop too. But since we're in comedy, we see it. But you're right. Like, there'll definitely be people who will carry on about a person passing away that maybe they weren't as close to as they're letting on.
Right.
Because they're trying to prove that they were.
Does that bother you?
I certainly think about it, but I don't let it bother me because I think that ultimately it's nice and it's so sad that the person is dead that I don't think about that as much.
You don't think
it comes into my head though.
Do you look at some people who post, especially let's say when there was someone you knew who you were very close to, right? Where you're really affected by it. And then you see someone else who was nowhere near as close to that person as you were.
Right.
And they are writing some insanely effusive in memoriam caption that's very long. And you know that person, especially the person who died, didn't give two shits about this person who's writing this thing about them. Do you don't feel a sense of like, shut the fuck up? You're making more of this than you should.
It's my first instinct is to feel that way. But then after I thought about it for 90 seconds, I would be like, you know what? It's incredible that so-and-so touched this many people where they felt this close and connected to him, even though they weren't that close to them.
Well, that's very magnanimous of you. I'm impressed because my cynicism leads me to only doubt, unfortunately.
Right.
And I just get annoyed because...
But what's wrong with it though? Like, what's the problem with that?
Because to me, it feels like they're doing it for fucking likes and clout.
Right.
Like,
right.
Where were you when the person was alive?
Right.
You weren't showing up to stuff. I don't know. Maybe that's not the right way to go with it, but
totally. No.
You are now laying down this bed of flowers and shining a light on your grief that is not consistent with your relationship that you have with the person while they were alive.
Right.
And it feels false to me. It feels like a fallacy.
Right. Well, dude, see, sometimes I'm going to be honest, even when people who I know were close to them post, I still feel that way sometimes.
Sure.
where I'm like, all right, dude, like
This isn't how they wanted to be.
What are you trying to prove?
Right.
Sometimes I think that. I feel embarrassed about it because it's like, hey, this is really where my head's going. But I mean, it's good to hear that you think that too. And I'm sure plenty of people think that.
I agree.
You know,
I agree. Is it ever right to call someone out for doing that?
I don't know. This is the question I would have. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I can't say that it's wrong. I don't think you could say that it's wrong. But
can't.
is it worth it?
No.
And that is why I think no one says shit. And and this brings on a greater issue. No one saying shit leads to a lot of problems. But nobody wants to be I mean, dude, the Astros thing is a perfect example. There was players on that team who were like, this is fucked up. But they didn't say shit. And what are they going to say? You know what I mean? It's such a hard thing to deal with. And that's why like revolutions happen. Because no one says shit until it's too much. And then you have to just overthrow the fucking government.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if you notice, like it's very rare that like these regime changes happen gradually, or there's usually some like crazy moment. And then all of a sudden everything gets flipped upside down and then they figure it out from there. You know what I mean? It's like these moments that drive history forward. And I guess, that is making this maybe too big of a picture, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
the point of this is I'm not saying that we should be calling these people out who do this because I don't think it's worth it, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Let me ask you this. Do you, when someone dies, take stock of your relationship with that person and have a moment where you think like, should I post something about this person or not? Will others think, oh, he didn't know that guy well enough. This is silly.
So I think that this is why having this thinking that we have is problematic. Because when you judge other people's posts, which happens inevitably, dude, every single day I see posts and I'm like, oh God, dude.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Get it together. I send them to you. I literally send them to both you and Chris, being like, this guy's a fucking tool.
Yeah.
All the time. And it absolutely affects my process of posting. And it makes me post way less because I judge myself.
Right.
I'm like, are they going to think this about me the way I thought this about? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's so
Totally.
unhealthy.
Totally. Yeah. I have only posted one thing about being sad about someone dying, and it was when Kobe died. And I posted a tweet just, and it I think for that one, everybody in the world posted something, but it happened I posted like 20 minutes after I found out because I was just kind of like, what
shook
is happening?
Yeah, crazy.
And I wanted to ask you this. I have two more questions for you. The first is, who do you think there is in society right now who, if they died tomorrow, would elicit a similar level of mourning and news coverage and remembrance as what we've seen with Kobe? Dude, it's
Obama?
a very limited amount of people.
Right. No, you're right. I think Obama
would be one.
Obama definitely.
Oprah,
Yeah.
maybe. Who?
Michael Jordan.
Jordan. Okay. Trump wouldn't do it.
I don't think so.
When Kennedy died,
That was like,
it was like when the North Korean dictator died.
oh, that was crazy.
Where people like will go to the steps of his
with the Kim Jong-il
statue and just weep openly. Like that, when Kennedy died, I know that the nation mourned in that way. And I do think that if Obama absolutely.
Yeah.
But I really don't think there are that many people that could lead to this level of remembrance.
Right. Yeah. Like definitely a small amount.
Yeah.
So real quick, I want to say thank you to the people who made suggestions to me for alternative things to ADD medication.
Oh yeah.
Because I found this thing, and I don't know this girl's name, but her Instagram is DLaneva, and she recommended this, and a couple other people recommended it too. So I apologize because I did get a bunch of messages about this, but she was a naturopathic something or other, and it's this potion, dude. And apparently they talk about it on Goop and like all these podcasts are big talk.
Gwyneth.
And also Joe Rogan talks about it, I guess.
Okay.
But it's called Sun Potion. And it's this little like powder you put in your drink, and it's fucking amazing. And it's almost so good that I'm like, this can't be good for you.
Huh.
But it's like fully an Adderall replacement. When I only tried it a couple times, but when I don't use it, I don't feel that letdown that I was feeling when I was taking Adderall every day.
Really?
When I didn't take it.
Right.
So highly recommend. Sun potion.
So what is it
Check
meant to
out.
do? What are the goals of taking it?
Okay, so like when you have to do a task you really don't feel like doing. Like
Sure.
for me, it's editing. I hate editing. It's so hard. Chris is chuckling. It's so hard. I despise it. I cannot stand it.
It's brutal.
And when I have to sit down and do it, I start getting anxiety.
Yeah.
But the reason why Adderall was always great was because when I would take it, that anxiety would just turn into, okay, I have to do this and I'm going to do it and it'll be fine.
Resignation and focus.
Resignation and focus. So this sort of gives you that and energy to like overcome that anxiety that just makes you tired.
Right.
Pretty much.
Okay. Wow.
So
I would want to see what's in this sun potion.
we should check it out. But it's some dopamine powder.
Huh. So it's a mood thing, probably, too.
I guess. I imagine that it probably is as well.
Fun.
So that's the scoop.
As always, G, where can we find you?
At Not Julio. Those Denver shows got canceled, everybody. I'm sorry about that.
Is that Corona related?
It's not Corona related.
Okay.
But I'm going to be at South by Southwest. I have a show. I have a couple shows. I'm going to lock down those dates soon and let everybody know. But it's coming up in a couple weeks. So I'm excited.
Fantastic.
What about you?
I'm at Francis C.C. Ellis. Follow at Oops the Podcast for all our great clips at the hands of our wizard editor, Chris. And you can get tickets to see me at Helium in Philadelphia, March 5th to the 7th. Thanks so much for listening. As always, we love you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.